published 1903 Eastern Daylight Saving Time, the 11th of May 2018, updated 1953 Eastern Daylight Saving Time, the 11th of May 2018. He is not a character susceptible to sentiment when recalling campaigns lost, but Davy Weir has almost daily echoes at the road to the UEFA Cup final 10 years ago. The boys have always kicked those balls out in the back garden and I have heard them banging against the wall, says the former Rangers defender and assistant manager. The balls, well, Lee McCulloch and myself had a wee tick. We would always take an adapter with us on European trips and come back with a Champions League or UEFA Cup ball. It was simple. David Weir remembers his side's journey in the UEFA Cup with disappointment in pre-match training or after matches. We would take a ball and deflate it with the adapter and it would travel back in the hamper for us to pick up at Murray Park. His two oldest sons, Lucas and Jensen, would gratefully grab the balls, one from the final in Manchester, and play outside their house in Cheshire. Lucas, 17, will travel to the USA on a scholarship to play football this summer. Jensen, at 16, has signed a full-time deal with Wigan Athletic. Weir's 14-year-old daughter, Kenzie, plays for Everton. Ruben, 12, does not follow the sport, but his father, at 47, is still immersed in football. I am a trustee of the PFA, completing a master's in sporting directorship and helping a club with recruitment, he says. He is not one who looks back obsessively. He has had his sober say on the departure from Rangers, but his reflections on the European run of 2007-2008 bristle, almost unwittingly, with what was the imperative at Ibrox only 10 years ago. This is a story about how achievements can only be measured in the light of winning. But, first, Weir makes the admission of the acquisition of match balls, adding, believe it or not, there is an orange one that UEFA sent to us in case it snowed. That, he is also mildly amused to have an impressive collection of jerseys from the campaign. I have a messy shirt. Think it's up in the loft. He also has the UEFA match facts from the run that started in Champions League qualifiers, continued through the group stage of Europe's biggest club competition and led to the UEFA Cup and the final in Manchester. It included victories over Lyon and Stuttgart in the Champions League and the dismissal of Panathinaikos, Werder Bremen, Sporting Lisbon and Fiorentina en route to ultimate defeat by Zenit St. Petersburg in the showpiece. They are in a room that I use as a study, he says. I sometimes take them out to have a glance. There were great players in those games: Diego at Werder, Christian Vieri and Adrian Mutu at Fiorentina, Joao Moutinho at Sporting, Andrei Arshavin and Anatoly Tomoshchuk at Zenit. Weir and co lost the final against Zenit St. Petersburg after a remarkable cup run, and that was just the UEFA Cup. However, Weir's overriding emotion is not warm nostalgia, it is cold reality. This, after all, was the Rangers of Walter Smith and the greatest of expectations. Everything was about winning the league, he says. You approached Europe professionally, you tried to do it right. But it wasn't the priority. Not really. With Walter, it was about winning the league. That was his starting point. I bet he believes that campaign cost us the league. This sharp reflection brings into focus the big picture of Ibrox 2007-2008. I had been brought in mid-season in 2006-2007 when we were battling with Aberdeen to finish second in the league, he adds. We had to get results to get the second qualifying Champions League place. That was massive. We achieved that. Weir was surprised when he was kept on. There needed to be an upgrade and I didn't think I'd be part of it. I was an Everton sub. Then, quite quickly, I was playing for Rangers in the Champions League. The extraordinary European campaign started with Weir scoring in the dismissal of FC Zeta before the decisive qualifying Champions League tie against Red Star Belgrade. Rangers took a 1-0 advantage to the Serbian capital for a tie that opened the way to riches. I'd been there before with Hearts and it was really intimidating. They had signed a lot of good players to qualify for the Champions League, hoping for that windfall, says Weir. You knew it was a massive game because of how Walter was. You could tell by his demeanor in the days leading up to it. He wasn't one for working away on the pitch. He didn't overcoach or give you too much information, but, in the bigger games, he stepped forward a little bit. He was more visible, more vocal. You sensed that he knew it was big, so you knew it was big. A goalless draw put Rangers into a Champions League section with Stuttgart, Lyon and Barcelona. 7 points were taken from the first 3 matches, a 2-1 victory over Stuttgart at home, a 3-0 win against Lyon in France and a 0-0 draw against Barcelona at Ibrox. Defeats in Catalonia and Germany left Rangers only having to avoid defeat against Lyon at Ibrox to qualify for the knockout stage. They lost 3-0, the same score that Rangers had achieved in the Stade Jalon. The 3-0 result in Lyon was result of the century, he says. They were a really good team, and in the reverse leg, you saw the real Lyon. Sidney Govous, Kim, Shellstrom, Juninho were all superb. Karim Benzema was fantastic. Reality kicked in. It seems extraordinary now, but the departure from the Champions League into the UEFA Cup was greeted with loud criticism instead of sympathetic murmurs. We did well, but, Rangers being Rangers, you are expected to beat whoever is in front of you, regardless of their quality, regardless of the situation. Walter Smith believes the run in Europe cost Rangers in the Scottish League exploits. Weir adds, it was crushing to go into the UEFA Cup. It was an afterthought. The profile of competition in the time was nowhere near what it is now. Perception among the punters too, was that we had failed. It would be looked on as an inconvenience because it was Walter's first full season back and his rhetoric would be all about winning the league. That is what you are judged on at Rangers. You don't target getting to the final of a UEFA Cup. It was looked upon as a hindrance to winning the league by some, so when did winning the UEFA Cup, or at least reaching the final, come to the forefront of his mind? I don't know if it ever did, he says. Even after knocking out Panathinaikos, Werder Bremen and Sporting Lisbon, Weir was downbeat about the chance of ultimate glory. Going into the Fiorentina tie, I was looking at the team and then at the squads in the other semi-final between Bayern Munich and Zenit and thinking, we shouldn't really be here. I never felt we were in it. That sounds terrible, but it was true. It wasn't about negative thinking and not trying or anything like that. It was the reality of the situation. I never felt that it was destiny. It crept up on us. Even when the semi-final went to penalties in Florence, I thought, we will F this up. They did not. Nacho Novo converted the penalty that sent Rangers to the final after 2 goalless matches. Weir, too, has little of romance to discuss about the 2-0 defeat to the Russian side in the final in Manchester. He says, we lost. So, even now, I don't really think I have played in a European final. We got beaten, so I don't look back on it as a happy time. The overriding memory is of failure. You can look at the succession of teams knocked out by us, but I look at it as we never ultimately won. However, his study of an anniversary prompts him to make observations that have a contemporary resonance. The 2007-2008 season saw Rangers win the Scottish Cup, League Cup, reach a UEFA Cup final and lose the league to Celtic on the last day of the season. The title would be regained the following season, but Weir dismisses any cliché that the disappointment of losing the championship in 2008 added to the hunger that would bring it in 2009. Not really, he says of any thoughts he may have had about an extra incentive. With Walter, it was about winning the league every season. That was his starting point. He understands Rangers perfectly. If I owned Rangers, I would have him in tomorrow to help out. He gets it. He maybe doesn't need it, but he gets it.